Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the latest Chiefs Digest Live. I am Derrick, beat writer over at Chiefs Digest, and only 9 minutes late. That is actually, for those of you who may not know me, that's remarkably on time for me. These live broadcasts are still a little new to me. So I was whipping together some graphics for this and was hoping to have them finished well before now. So hopefully I can talk you guys all through and talk you everybody through a few of the things that we now know about the Patrick Mahomes restructure, what it kind of means for Mahomes, what it means for the team, and what it may mean for a few others as well down the road. So first thing I wanted to really get at was just, and we'll see if we can take a look here at the Mahomes contract as it was originally structured. This is, the 2020, contract as it stood just a few days ago. So we'll take a look at this right here if I can figure out how to bring it up and bring it up so that you can all actually see it. There's a lot of numbers there, obviously. But this is how it looked a couple of days ago. And this was the bare bones of what Mahomes and the Chiefs agreed to back in 2020. Now, there have been a few changes since then because there have been some roster bonuses converted into signing bonuses and moved around so that the Chiefs could navigate the cap a little bit. Some back history for those of you who may not remember. The key phrase from the original Mahomes contract was the rolling guarantees. And this was essentially that anywhere from 12 to 24 months out, a portion of the contract would guarantee. Usually what would happen is that, for instance, in 2022, his 2023 base salary would be guaranteed, and the 2024 roster bonus would be guaranteed. And the way it was set up is that roster bonus would be paid in March. Now, what the Chiefs could do, and the salary cap trick of it all, was that the Chiefs could convert that bonus, that roster bonus, into a signing bonus. And you probably have heard about that signing bonuses for players on their contract get prorated over the length of the contract. That's one of the little salary cap tricks. Roster bonuses are another trick, because what then teams can do is change that from a roster bonus to a signing bonus and then prorate it over the next 5 years of the contract. So the Chiefs have done that a few different times, and that's why you see in that restructured column, you see different numbers. That's reflecting different restructures. The Chiefs did one in 2021 that covered all the years up to 2025. They did another one this year, which covered all the way through 2027. So that's how it stood as of a few days ago. And you can see, as I clicked the wrong button, there'll be a lot of that today, folks. So don't worry. You're not freaking out. It's completely me. But you can see, I know it's a little tiny there, but you can see what the salary cap hits were. For 2023, a salary cap number was going to be 39.7 roughly. And that included all those numbers from different columns. It included the 5.5 base salary, a $2 million signing bonus that was paid back in 2020 that was hitting against the cap. It's not money for this year, but it hits against his cap. The 2022.4 was the roster bonus, the portion that was remaining. Now, back earlier this year, I think it was back in March, could have been early April, but I believe it was March, he had $12 million converted into a signing bonus. So that took it out of the roster column, put it over into that restructured column, and that's why you see like 2.4 million in 26 and 27. That's from that signing bonus that he was paid, that was converted from a roster into a signing bonus this spring. You see the workout bonus, 550,000. Remember that, because it's going to change. The restructure bonus, like we talked about, that's the money from the contract reworkings that the team has done now 3 times. And then this 2.5 million, that's the miscellaneous. That's the money he earns in 2023 because of his incentives. Since he won the Super Bowl, won the MVP, actually it's because he won the AFC Championship game and won the MVP. He got 1.25 million for both of those. But they actually count against the 2023 cap. And so that's why you end up with that cap number of 39.6. And as of a few days ago, he was going to be making $40.45 million this year in cash. That's actually what he was going to make. So what we have now is the new contract. And this one, I got my graphics on, and we'll hide that for a second so we can see the whole thing here. You'll notice that the first three seasons don't change because those are in the past. But we do now see is that we've had that base salary brought down from 5.5 million down to 1.325 million and change. That is one way you get around the salary cap. You take base salary, you take it all the way down, you put money into a bonus structure so that then you can spread it out over the length of the contract. That 22.4 million in roster bonus you see there, that's what he was already paid this year, so that money's not going to change. What does change is he's the prorated bonus has gone up. It's now up to 12.8. Why is that? Well, the new contract has a $20 million signing bonus in it, so then that gets prorated out over the next 5 years of the contract. So he gets some new money. He gets some more money this year. That 20 million, 10 of it, it's roughly a little over 20 million. Half of it gets paid now. He's going to get half of it next April, but all of it's going to count in the salary cap for the next 5 years. The roster bonuses have changed, and we're going to look at the base salary and the roster bonuses separately here in a little bit. But the roster bonus for this year did not change. It is going to change for future years, though. And also look at the workout bonus. Hey, Patrick gets a raise, just like Chris Jones. He gets a raise in his workout bonus, taking him from 550 up to $1 million. I don't know if you're averaging $52.5 million a year, that $1 million workout bonus is that big. But this is what's tied to the off-season workouts. So, in April and May and June, when the team gets together for the preseason practices, off the OTA practices, that's what that $1 million is tied to. So I would imagine Patrick is most of the time going to show up for those regardless of whether or not he's getting the $1 million, but the $1 million is nice. And now you see the cap number there. Remember, we talked about the cap number for this year was going to be 39 million and change. Now it's gone down to 37.1. How do you do that? Well, you brought that base salary down. That's a big one part of it, and that's really the biggest part of it, because then he has that signing that signing bonus, the $20 million signing bonus, that then gets spread out over the next 5 years. So by taking that base salary down $4 million this year, he is now able to get $2.5 million in cap savings for the Chiefs. It's pretty important because as of this morning, according to the NFLPA salary cap, I think the number was the Chiefs were under the salary cap was $135,000 and like $144. To give you an indication about like what $135,000 can get you, elevating a player from the practice squad cost you about $30,000. So with the money that the Chiefs had under the salary cap today, they could have elevated 4 players the rest of the season from the practice squad. Not enough. So they still need a little bit of room, but the 2.5 million in money that they created with this restructure helps out a lot. So that's actually going to be a good thing. Couple of other things to look, and we'll dig into a couple of these details later in another chart, but I want to show you and point out specifically what happens in 2027, because what you've probably heard about the highlights of this deal is that it really impacts 2023 through 2026, those 4 years. And it's true. I mean, those are the ones that really stand out as the ones that, are the ones that really cover this deal. And the reason why that there's a lot of focus on that is because Lamar Jackson signed a 4-year contract for $208 million. This contract is going to give Patrick Mahomes over the next 4 years $208.1 million. So it's really all about that. They don't really get into year 5, which I think is kind of interesting because, Deshaun Watson has a 5-year guaranteed contract for $230 million. Mahomes has technically got more cash coming to him over the next 5 years, but they're not really concerned about 2027 as much. That's not the one that we hear a lot about. There's a reasonable chance that he could play this contract under the 2027 season with no changes. I mean, it could certainly happen. I'm not expecting it to. I think after 2026, they'll probably revisit this deal again. But one thing you've heard about this deal is that it took money from the back end to put it into the next 4 years. And technically that's true. And we'll see it on like the other slide here in a minute. But you look at it now and you can see there's some interesting things going on here. The base salary changes quite a bit. The roster bonuses change quite a bit and go, from really big, small to really big, down to really small again. And then there's 2 more years added on. That wasn't really talked a lot about on Monday. But this is no longer technically a 10-year contract for Patrick Mahomes. It's now a 12-year deal. But those 2 years, the last two deals for the years covering 32 and 33 in the contract, voids on the last day of the 2029 season. So, technically, if you look at this, for instance, and why I say, the last few years of the deal are definitely going to be reworked. If you look at 2027, Patrick Mahomes is scheduled to be paid, in far as base salary and roster bonus, $51.9 million. That's a decent amount. I mean, it's not as much as he's making over the next 4 years. And by 2027, that is not going to be the going rate for a lot of quarterbacks. It will have gone up again. But that's a reasonable number for a 32-year-old quarterback. I mean, we're not expecting it not to be reasonable based on his performance, but that's a number at least. It's not crazy. What's crazy is what happens in 2028. You look at the base salary for that year, it's almost 18 million, a little under, and then a roster bonus of 8.2. So a 33-year-old Patrick Mahomes won't be playing for $26.2 million. I mean, there's no intent whatsoever of him ever playing under that contract. So he won't see that number, but it's going to, and it will get reworked. But it's notable to me that 2 years were added onto this contract, because that's just, those are placeholders. That's there for the future. So when they do start reworking this contract and they start pushing things out again, you got 2 more years to play with. So when, for instance, they restructure this contract in 2026 or 2027, that's going to start pushing out into 2032 for that restructure. So the base is there. Now, is Patrick Mahomes going to play through 38? I don't know. I know everybody wants him to. We'll see. I mean, it's a long way off. It's a really long way off, but it just goes to show you that this organization, especially the front office with Brett Veach and Brant Tillis and Chris Shea, that are so big time involved in these contracts and everything, the details of it, they're planning for the 2033 salary cap. So that's why you do that. Now I do want to go through, and I'll get to those details later, but here's the real meat of it to look at, as far as what it means for Mahomes in the short term and what it's going to mean for the salary cap. You look at how the base salaries changed, and and once again, I mean, these numbers can move around, but they're kind of set in a way in between the base salary and the roster bonus. The word that you saw in Albert Breer's report that really came from the Chris Cabot and his Patrick Mahomes' agent, and that side of things, was that this was about cash flow. It was about just making sure that Patrick was getting the appropriate amount of money every year, and so there's not really a huge difference between base salary and the roster bonus. The differences are in how they're paid. Base salary is paid during the season, and it's paid typically in 18-week increments over the regular season. That includes the bye week. So, every Friday, players get a paycheck, and it's for 1/18 of their salary, and that's how they're paid. Little detail. I mean, some players, players can choose to get paid year round. So some of them do. So some of them actually get paid, every week, all 52 weeks. They just get smaller checks. But it seems like a lot of the guys I talk to get the regular season checks, because I think they just like the bigger numbers and they don't like to have it spread out. They like the ones that probably need a little cash flow might choose the annual one. But a lot of players, most of the players I talk to do pick the once a week during the regular season and the 18 paychecks. But the bonuses are interesting, because the deal with Mahomes is that he is with these roster bonuses. Previously, they were paid in March, usually after the beginning of the new league year. New league year is in mid March, usually around the 15th. And a lot of bonuses get triggered in those first few days of the new league year. So if I remember correctly, I think Patrick's were usually paid on like the third or fourth day of the new league year, which gave the Chiefs a few days to figure out, hey, how much money do we need to have this roster bonus to convert into a signing bonus to create some salary cap space? One thing in this deal is that they are now moving that to May. And that's a great thing for the Chiefs, because now what it means is that they can get through free agency, the draft, late free agency. I mean, they can get through a lot of the offseason before they need to make a decision on how much of that roster bonus of Mahomes that they need to convert in order to create some salary cap space. So it's a really good benefit for the Chiefs. And and hey, does it mean Patrick gets his money 2 months later? Yeah. For some people that's a big deal. I mean, 2 months of interest, I get it, but I think it's a really good deal for the Chiefs, and obviously for the player, it's a benefit because if that money were in base salary, he's not getting it until the regular season. So in those weekly increments. So that's why the bonuses are good for the player and the team. By moving it from March to May, it's a really good compromise. I mean, it certainly helps both sides, but it's definitely a benefit for the Chiefs as far as navigating the cap. But you look at and you can see where the money was added over the next 4 years. Really, you see 2023. And I have the original bonus there is 34 because remember that does reflect that 12 million that was converted into a signing bonus. So that doesn't change, but I wanted to put that in there so you kind of knew exactly what his cash flow is this year. Next year, it's pretty much the same deal. I mean, his base salary goes up a little bit, but he's got essentially a very similar roster bonus. So roster bonus for that next year did not change actually. What it does do is that it then changes some of the money goes from base into bonus, or bonus into base in 2026, and that's kind of interesting to me. I mean, again, because we talked about that's the change as far as when the money is due, and that can also be another benefit to the Chiefs as far as if they need to convert that base salary in 2026 of that, say, $45 million. They can convert that into a bonus paid early. That's a good deal for the player, and then prorate it over the next 5 years. So it's a little bit of a quirk, and outside of really the next year, those rolling guarantees that we heard so much about really go away in this deal. And let's take a look and go into some of those details, because I think these are pretty fascinating myself, and I'll bring this back up to a full screen so you can kind of see everything here. These are in. I should give a lot of credit to Spotrac and Over the Cap, because they do a great job of collecting all these details from these contracts that we rely upon to figure out. One thing that a lot of people don't know, the contracts for the players aren't public, but they do get filed with the NFL Players Association. And that's how a lot of these details come out. Certainly they come from reporting, and sometimes agents will, give reporters quite a few details of the contracts. But when you see details of this level, this is coming from the NFLPA database that's got all the information about every player in the NFL's contracts. And so when you get this kind of detail, you kind of know the source of it. But so let's start, in 2023, you get the $20.5 million signing bonus that we discussed. $133 million of this is guaranteed at signing. The whole 208.1 over the next 4 years is guaranteed at signing for injury. So if Mahomes gets hurt, all that money through 2026 is guaranteed for injury. Now, when I talk about the rolling guarantees, remember I said earlier, it was generally the money would guarantee anywhere from 12 to 24 months out. Now, in this one, it really just guarantees year to year. Especially you look at, for next year, when that base salary is fully guaranteed, the roster bonus already guaranteed. You have the details of the payout there. May 5th is when that one's going to get paid out. I mean, it really mostly affects the next couple of seasons because with those rolling guarantees, Mahomes was already going to be guaranteed through 2025 essentially anyway. So I don't know if that's a huge change. It's a little quirk, but the injury guarantee is a bigger one for Mahomes because that one takes him through essentially the full 4 years ahead. Uh, and that's why I say, really focus on those years. I mean, by the time you get to 2028, Mahomes is not going to be playing under this contract. So to me, I mean, looking at those are pretty useless. But 26 and 27 are interesting because they're still structured pretty much the same way. But the one and the one thing is that there's a window there for 26 and 27 of that third league day in 2027. Remember, that's going to be like, without looking at a calendar, say March 18th. I mean, say that the beginning of the new league year is going to be March 15th. March 18th is when that guarantees. That's pretty much the expiration date for this contract that, both sides would want to have anything done. Now, he could play under 2027. He could do that. I mean, I don't think it would be a bad thing it would be a great thing for the Chiefs if Mahomes is still Mahomes and he's making essentially, like what we talked about, I think it's 51.5 million. That's a great deal. I mean, I would take that. And, it's 2028 that it gets really interesting. And that's the contract that, hey, Mahomes is not playing under that. So, the absolute minimum expiration date for getting a new restructure done for Mahomes for the next one is going to be like March 2028. That's when it's going to have to be done. I imagine it'll be done sooner than that. Wouldn't even surprise me if it's done before the 2026 season, but 2027 for sure is probably when this is going to get retouched. I mean, you can see where the guarantees are as far as, when things kick in. I mean, mostly, I mean, it all guarantees pretty quickly. The escalators are interesting. These are new. Like I said, Mahomes earlier had the bonuses, and the bonuses were for winning the AFC Championship game and winning MVP. And he met both of those last year. But those bonuses are gone. They've been replaced now with escalators. And those are really interesting because they're both things that Mahomes has achieved twice, and they're very achievable. So one is going to be a $1.25 million bonus for winning for an NFL MVP and making the AFC Championship game. He's already done that twice, obviously. He's also can get $1.25 million for winning the Super Bowl and playing at least 50% of the snaps in the Super Bowl or the regular season. I mean, Chiefs win the Super Bowl, it's because Mahomes played a lot. So he's either played in the Super Bowl or he played 50% of the regular season. I mean, anytime he pulls that off, that's going to raise his base salary by 1.25 million, and that can multiply. So if he did what he did last season in, say, 2023, he wins MVP, the Chiefs go to win the Super Bowl, he's going to add $2.5 million to his contract going forward. And, do that, and you're going to add $5 million to your contract for doing it twice. That's an interesting number for me. I'm kind of surprised because hey, if Mahomes continues the way he is, based on the past, you would say that in the next 4 years, there's a reasonable chance he hits that a couple of times. And, and certainly, I mean, would not affect, like we're talking about 2028 and beyond. I mean, those contracts will be reworked. And that's a little bit of why those future years, maybe taking the money out, it's not that big of a deal. Now, I'm certainly counting some chickens before they're hatched here, because obviously there's no guarantee that Mahomes is going to do either one of those things, that he can do either one. But I think it's a pretty safe bet. I mean, if you're betting on yourself and if you're Patrick Mahomes, that feels like a pretty good bet. So I wouldn't have any issues with that. So those are the details. That's what we know. And I do want to get into, maybe what this means for some of the other players on this team, what it means for the team going forward. I want to check in and see if anybody's ever got any questions, and going through KC Harold Don't ever receive on a contract like this. Is this common for top players on other teams? No. I mean, this is in reality the most unusual contract in the NFL. One, almost no one in the NFL has a 10-year contract. I'm not even aware of off the top of my head anyone that has longer than a 5-year contract. And 4 is really the going number for a lot of guys. And honestly, I mean, if you're able to get more than 3, it's a miracle. I mean, unless you are a superstar, you're usually not getting the 4 or the 5-year deals. You look at the quarterbacks and what they've been done. I mean, Deshaun Watson has a guaranteed 5-year contract. That is an outlier of all sorts. And is it a good deal? I mean, I think it's a great deal for Deshaun Watson. We'll see if it ends up being any kind of a deal for the Browns. But that might be the cautionary tale about why you don't do 5-year fully guaranteed contracts. And Mahomes doesn't have a fully guaranteed contract. But the structure of this one, for having, being 10 years out. And remember, Mahomes has only played 1 year of the 10-year extension. 2023 is the second year. He's got 8 more years under the extension before we're even talking about what's going on, anything else. And then on top of that, the Chiefs just added 2 more void years to it. So technically it's a 12-year extension, which is even crazier. So there's a lot of things that are revolutionary and groundbreaking about this Mahomes contract. The rolling guarantees were another one that was a different critter. That's something that a lot of players don't have. Most players don't have. But the way that this was approached, I mean, remember when the Chiefs did this deal, they looked to Major League Baseball, for some of the long-term deals, like Mike Trout's deal with the Angels. I mean, that was kind of their inspiration on how to put some of this together and how to structure it. So it's definitely outside the box for NFL contracts. Going over to Cole, the only issue with the restructures like this is the salary cap hit goes sky high. Yeah, and that's actually, I mean, it is absolutely by design. This year, for instance, and let me pull it off so I can give you the exact number. Every there is a baseline for the NFL for the salary cap. Then you'd think I would remember the exact number each and every year, but I can never remember what it is. But then teams have their own individual salary cap. And the biggest reason why is that there's these things called rollovers. So teams can roll over cap savings from 1 year to the next, and it can come a lot of different ways. One of the primary ways, with the Chris Jones contract, one of the things that was a big conversation was the likely to be earned and not likely to be earned incentives. If you have a player who had a likely to be earned incentive, that's going to count against the salary cap in that year. If they don't meet it, you get the credit for it, but you get the credit for it for the following seasons. And there's a lot of really weird things. I mean, sometimes recovered signing bonuses can be, recovered in future years. So every team has a different cap number. The average cap number, the base cap, unadjusted cap number this year is 224.8. The Chiefs team cap is, 220 million. So it's a little below the average and a little below the unadjusted number. But 224 million. What's it going to be next year? Generally speaking, 249 is kind of the expectation, and generally it trends above the projection. So 250 for next year. I've seen some projections going up to maybe 254 or 255. So the cap is going to go up probably $30 million next year. And it's very likely that the cap is going to go through some astronomical increases through these new TV deals over the next few seasons. So yeah, I mean, for Mahomes with his cap number, and let's go back to it again and look at where he's going to be. Let's make sure we get here we go. We get our latest and greatest contract for Mahomes up there. Let's take a look at, say, for 2026. His cap number is going to be $63 million. That's a big number, but the cap is going to go up probably 20 to 30 million next year. in 24. It might go up another 20 million in 25 and 26. So that 225 number, roughly 224 number that the cap is this year, 285 is maybe a conservative projection for where it'll be in 2026. So that's not a deal breaker. I mean, this is designed to go up as the cap goes up. Now, the one thing for sure that, as a Chiefs fan, you're just going to have to, take and appreciate and understand is that when you do all these restructures and you push money down the road, when the Chiefs are going to have the exact same pain that the Patriots did when Tom Brady leaves, you're going to have a salary cap Armageddon where you're just going to have to eat a huge number and move on. And don't worry about it. I mean, yeah, the Chiefs will have to do that, but it will be at the end of Patrick Mahomes' career, and you're going to be pretty happy to eat that number. So I don't. To me, that is that's not a deal breaker. To me, I'm living with that, and that's where I was thinking about this earlier today. I think as a Chiefs fan, you got to be pretty comfortable having Brett Veach as your GM because Brett's a young guy. I mean, unless he just decides, hey, Patrick's my guy. When he retires, I'm hanging it up and going out of here. He's young enough that he's going to have to live with the next quarterback, and he's going to have to rebuild this team after Mahomes. So, unless he flames out, which I don't think is going to happen. I mean, I think there's a pretty good chance Brett's got another, obviously Mahomes, you think is going to have at least another 10, 15 years, you would think. I don't know if he'll play that long, but say 10 years. I mean, that's how long the contract goes for. I think I think Brett Veach is going to outlast Mahomes in Kansas City. So he's going to have to live with it. So at least I think you have that benefit. As if your GM was 60 and he was making plans for when he's 72, I'd have a little bit more concern. But I think Brett Veach is going to be, fairly fiscally responsible, and I don't think you have to worry about that. I mean, he's going to have to live with the consequences of the Mahomes contract, and I think he's fine with that. Gary's got a good question here. Was does this spell out the possibility of giving Jones a good contract for next year? I mean, we had the report from Adam Schefter, which I'm sure was inspired a little bit by Chris's agents to make it seem that maybe he will be a free agent after the season and won't have the franchise tag. The Chiefs absolutely can franchise tag Chris Jones in the offseason. I mean, is it a 100%? No. I mean, there's always things that can happen. I mean, the Chiefs could let him walk. I mean, there's scenarios for everything. I mean, I would still think it would be more likely than not that unless a new extension gets done, that the Chiefs would franchise tag Chris, simply because then they could get compensation for him in a trade if necessary, just like with Tyreek. It keeps a lot of doors open. But I don't think there's not right now a financial reason. I'm looking at the Chiefs cap space. They've got about $50 million, I think, in cap space available right now, and that's based on some of the more conservative projections. So they could franchise tag Chris Jones. I think the bigger concern for Chris is that by basically kicking the can down the road for a year, he's got the 1 year for 2023, and then he's going to be back on the market again, either with the franchise tag or not. I mean, more than likely, an extension could still get done. But the thing is that to me, it kind of puts him in the back of the line. We just saw Patrick get his deal restructured. That's kind of moving in front of Chris. This wasn't always necessarily going to be the plan that Mahomes was going to get this deal done right now, but he's moved ahead of Chris in getting a long-term extension. In January, the Chiefs can start negotiating with their 2021 draft picks for extensions. So Creed Humphrey, Nick Bolton, Trey Smith can all start getting extensions in January. And trust me, the Chiefs are already planning on that. When I talked to Brett in August about the Chris Jones contract situation, he pointed specifically, and I asked him about the fact that the Chiefs haven't been real aggressive as far as signing their draft picks early. Really Mahomes is the only one that they have signed to a long-term extension before they hit free agency. And with the guys who have hit free agency, they've only kept them for a year. But remember the guys, that have, played out their rookie contracts. For the most part, Chiefs have either brought them back on a 1 year deal or let them walk. Those are three guys they do not want to let walk. Those are three guys that they want to keep. And Chris Jones, his extension, had he signed a long-term extension, it was going to be built in a way to make sure that they could go out and try and sign those three guys. Now, it doesn't mean that all three are going to be amenable, that they're going to be willing to sign, but the Chiefs want to try and get those three done, and they want to get them done quickly. If they can, those three guys might all move in front of Chris Jones for the money. And if that happens, if, Mahomes gets his deal done, if Nick Bolton, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, even if two of the three get extensions done before March, that moves in front of Chris. And now there's a little bit less money out there for him. So that's why I say that, I think there's a risk here if, for Chris wanting to stay in Kansas City, is that the money may be gone. And Travis Kelce might also get a rework deal. I mean, we don't know. I mean, there's other guys that could possibly get extensions and things reworked. So that's the only concern I would have for Chris, from my vantage point, is that, if a bunch of other guys get their extensions done before he can, then there might not be money left at the end. See, going through the questions here, and see, Gary had another question about prohibiting a multi-contract during the same fiscal year. I think if you're talking about, like, with Mahomes, he basically signed two contracts this year. Well, didn't sign two contracts. He did a restructure of sorts, because they did that conversion of the roster bonus to a signing bonus. That is something that you can only do once a year. But a restructure is kind of outside that framework. So that's why, because Mahomes, with those roster conversions, he doesn't actually have to sign anything. Those are built into the contract. So the Chiefs, all they have to do with that is, when they do that every spring, and now they'll be doing it in May, all the Chiefs have to do is say, hey, Patrick, here's a check. We're going to give you your roster, your bonus now in this form for a signing bonus, and we're going to convert it. So we'll give your money early. We're going to convert this, and we'll spread it over the next 5 years. But you get your money early. All they have to do is tell him and give him the check. They don't have to do anything else. So it's that in that case isn't a restructured deal. So this one's different. But yeah, I mean, normally you can only sign a contract once a year. And that's why, with Chris, if you're going to get an extension done, it's going to have to be after the season, because, he can't, now that he's already signed a 1 year deal and the restructured deal for this year, he can't sign it in like November, an extension. I mean, you could agree to terms for one, but you would have to wait until after the season to get it done. So there are some weird things about that as far as the NFL goes. Now, if you release a player, that's different. But for a guy under contract, yeah, there's some squirrely things about signing too many deals in a calendar year or a 12-month period or during the season. Kevin, get a little bit outside the restructuring the cap, but I like it. We'll go for it. Trading CEH to the Browns. I tell you what, I have seen absolutely nothing to convince me that the Chiefs have considered, trading Clyde. They've just have used him too much. I mean, they allowed him to be the number one running back all through the offseason workouts and training camp and the preseason. They gave him a lot of snaps. And I have never seen the Chiefs, in my time covering the team under Andy Reid, give a player that much work during the offseason and during training camp and the preseason, and not plan on keeping them around during the regular season and past the trade deadline. I can't rule it out. They have quality running backs behind them. I mean, remember, they've got, LaMichael Pirine, and they've got the kid from Tulsa, who's, when you start watching more of my lives, you'll remember how terrible I am with names. So Prince, Derrick Prince, there, I knew I was going to get it. They've got those guys in the practice squad, so they've got some depth. So I can't rule it out. And I think that, hey, as some guys go down around the league, and the Chubb injury is a great example of that. I mean, I think Clyde would have a lot of value. We'll see, but as long as the Chiefs are, considering themselves in championship contention for this season, I at this point see no interest in them and letting him go. I think they love having that kind of depth. Let's see. And Joe, the question: how do you find cap savings for the rest of this year? You're starting to run out of places. The Joe Tooney one was the big one. You got a little bit more out of Mahomes. You got the 2.5 there. And I'm going to pull it up just so I'm not talking completely out of my behind. But there's not a lot of other places where you can. I mean, as far as where there's some money that you can squeeze out. Travis Kelce has a little bit. He's got an $11.25 million base salary, which if you wanted to restructure, you wanted to give him a little bit more money, you could get some savings there. The catch is that, as good of a team guy as Travis has been, I'm not making that call to Travis to get him to convert some money, to get some cap space, unless I'm putting more money in that contract too. Travis has been a good guy, and we had the off-season conversation, where his agents talked about he talked about the fact that, he never goes to his agents to say, hey, get more money from the Chiefs or anything. But if the Chiefs call and want a favor, if I'm Travis's agents, I'm saying, hey, that's great, but let's put some more money in this deal because Travis is underpaid. His cap hits 14.8. And even with the injury, I mean, this is Travis. He's the best tight end in football by far. And compared with where he is in the market for the other tight ends, badly underpaid. And considering that he is essentially the number one wide receiver on this team, he's definitely underpaid. So I don't know if I'm making that call without asking for something in return if I'm Travis, but it's possible. An interesting place might be Justin Reed. I mean, he's got an $8.95 million base. You could convert some of that into a signing bonus, but that's if you're interested in keeping him. And I think the Chiefs are, so it wouldn't necessarily surprise me. Marquez has a little bit of money. They have an out with Marquez after this year, and he's got, I think, a pretty big cap number next year. So that might not be where they want to go. Really, then you're getting down to Harrison Butker. He's got a $3.5 million base. That's not a ton of money to move around, but, you could conceivably get maybe $1 million in savings here or there, but you kind of have to rework that deal too a little bit. After that, you really start to run out of room. I mean, L'Jarius Sneed's got only a $2.7 million base, but once again, I mean, if you're touching L'Jarius Sneed's contract, you're making a longer term extension, and I don't know that you would actually get any savings from that. I mean, that's since he's still on his rookie deal, that'd probably cost you more. So I don't know that there's really any place that you can find some money. Those are the ones that, to me, I mean, the Chiefs will probably need a little bit more space. With the Mahomes deal, they're going to have about a little over $2.5 million in some cap space. Kelce, Justin Reed, I think would be the most interesting one. Those are two places where you can get a little bit more, and it's really about, what do you think you need? I mean, injuries are the one thing that could really hurt you, and that's when you'd have to add to the cap. And so if you lose a bunch of guys, and right now the Chiefs, if they needed to go out and get some, injury replacement players, they're probably from the practice squad. I mean, is going out and getting Carlos Dunlap, is that an option with where the cap is right now? I don't know. I mean, signing a veteran to come in, to take some snaps, I don't know if it's in the budget right now, the way that they're set up. And going through the comments, and you guys are doing a great job of promoting me, so I should remember that and promote myself. So please, absolutely, wherever you are, hit the like, hit the sub, do everything you can. I am enough of, shameless for trying to make some money, that if we get to 1,000 on YouTube for subs, we can start making some money on the Chiefs Digest channel. So I definitely appreciate you. And I am very grateful for those of you in the comments who are reminding others to hit the sub button, hit the like button, everything. Thank you. I appreciate it. I try to keep Chiefs Digest free for everybody, not behind the paywall. So I appreciate you putting up with the advertising and putting up with my calls for desperation. Looking through to just see if there's any other comments, and I'll go over and I'm going to check out Twitter real quick too and see if anybody X, whatever you want to call it. See if anybody had some questions over there for us. If there's any that we'll try and get to you. I'll try not to overlook anything. But a lot of the questions about the future that I wanted to talk about, for the Chiefs, with what the Mahomes deal means, you guys asked some great questions about. So we really did cover some of that. I do think that this will affect what the Chiefs want to do going forward with some things. And does it directly affect Chris Jones? It could. I mean, is this an either or? Not necessarily. And it's not, Patrick Mahomes or anybody else, but it's deals like this. And this is why, to me, I also think that not getting the Chris Jones extension done will make it harder for the Chiefs to get an extension done, because planning for the next 5 years, 4 or 5 years out, is really important to Brett Veach, and that's one of the reasons why this Mahomes deal is important, because this team has a young core and there's guys that they want to keep. Now, when you're paying your quarterback as much money going forward as the Chiefs are, I mean, keeping everybody's not going to be a luxury you can have. You can't keep everybody. I mean, and if you start keeping Nick Bolton and Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, you're going to have to let somebody go at some point. Does that mean, I have a question mark for anybody right now who is in the final year of their rookie contract, if they're going to be with this team beyond that. Just simply because, one thing that Brett Veach said from his first day as GM is that he thought it was important to sign guys that you're going to keep beyond their rookie contract. You get them signed before their final year. And none of the players in that 2020 draft have been signed to long-term contracts. So any of those guys that are in their final year, you got to have some question marks about whether or not they're going to keep them. And L'Jarius Sneed's at the top of the list. And I say that as somebody who, I want to keep watching L'Jarius Sneed play. I mean, I think there's a lot to like. You ask around the league, and there will be some criticisms about Sneed, that mostly that he plays with a style that they fear is going to be injury prone. There's some medical concerns about the knee that might hurt him in free agency, and maybe that will allow him to stay in Kansas City. I mean, if there's enough concerns around the league, maybe it will keep him affordable for the Chiefs. I love this style of play. I don't want L'Jarius Sneed to change anything. And probably the really interesting guy that's of that 2020 class is Mike Dana, because he could really end up having a breakout year, especially if he produces the way he has for the first couple of games. If he has a double-digit sack season, which right now it looks like he could do easily, he's going to make a payday. He is going to be, especially because now what the Chiefs have done with him as far as giving him flexibility. If Mike Dana goes out there as a guy who can rush the passer from both inside and outside, he is going to get paid. And so that's going to be tough. And I don't know. I mean, how many of these guys have been offered long-term deals with the Chiefs? I mean, have they talked about it? I haven't heard, so I can't tell you specifically that any of these guys have had those discussions with their agents in the front office. Could be that none of them have. I'm sure there's been at least some cursory talks about, hey, what would it take to keep some of these guys? And maybe the Chiefs weren't interested. Maybe, they're certainly willing to gamble, and they have been in the past. And it's always possible they might be able to get somebody to come back. And, and Lucas Niang is interesting too, because, he had the COVID year that he sat out, so he won't actually be, eligible for free agency for another year. But Clyde, Willie Gay, Sneed, Dana, all of them are eligible. And right now, the fact that they don't have extensions would say to me, it's probably their final year in KC, unless they fall into that category of falling through the cracks in free agency and come back on a 1-year deal. But I mean, Sneed, I'll be really interested in, because that's a guy that I like his style. I think it's great, but there's some concerns around the league, and we'll see how that translates. I mean, if that ends up that the Chiefs are able to keep a guy like Sneed at a bargain deal, or at least a prove it deal for one more year, I mean, I think they'd absolutely do it. I don't think there's anything that would keep them away or scare them away from that. Probably wrap up here in a couple of minutes because my voice is giving out, but I do want to just go through and see if you guys got any more questions. Hey, how about those Chiefs? If you can help me get to 1,000, bud, I'd owe you one there. Thank you. I appreciate it. And Chris brings up, we talked about this a little bit, but good old Chris. Yeah, I mean, moving from March to May is a really big deal as far as moving that bonus money, especially for the next couple of years, because as we talked about, for the next few seasons at least, it's still a fairly big number for the roster bonus. When it comes when that base salary gets a little bit bigger, it starts pushing it back even further. But now that the Chiefs don't have to decide by May 8th or March 18th whether or not to convert any of that Mahomes bonus money into a signing bonus and spread it out over the next 5 years, and now they can wait 2 more months. That's pretty significant. So I mean, that was a good concession that they were able to get. And like I said, I mean, I think it's good for both the player and the team. So it's I think that's a favorable move, and it's definitely something that's going to benefit the Chiefs. And let's see here, bring up Red Hood Chief. Hearing about FAU from the early parts, he looks further along than George this time of year. There's ways in which I agree with that. Um, there's no doubt that for Felix not having the OTAs and being he was pretty much 100% once they got the training camp, but they still kind of came along with him slowly. But those OTAs and the mini camp, I mean, those were 13 practices that were really really important for rookie development, and you could tell that he was behind a little bit, and I think he was swimming. But it seems like he has really, I think, come through that. He really seems to come on the other side of it. I think it's, you can see it in his play that I think his play has been a lot more confident. That's the one thing that, for the rookies that Spags does is that he dumps everything on them. So, when Felix's head was really swimming a lot during training camp, it's because he was trying to learn everything. He was trying to pick up the entire playbook, pairing up all his responsibilities. And now, as Spags puts it, now you go from having the entire book in front of you, like he did in August, to each week just getting a couple of chapters. That's the way they're using him, because it's Felix. They're not using him as an every down guy. They're working him in slowly, and you see him on that third down package now, where they just put a bunch of pass rushers out there with him, Karlaftis, Dana, and Jones. That's going to be a really good package. And then you throw in all the guys that they can blitz with too. Felix looks really comfortable in that role. And so I think that, he's a different player than Karlaftis. He's got a different skill set. So that probably helps out a little bit. I mean, to me, the biggest challenges that Felix is going to have going forward is that when they give him more of the playbook and they give him more responsibilities, is his size gonna be ready for it? Because he's a little bit of a tweener. I mean, for a 4.43 end, he's a little on the small side. But I think that's the best role for him. I mean, he's definitely shown that he can pick up some of this stuff and, drop him back in coverage. I mean, that's not a thing that you want your edges to have to do a lot, but, I think he's got the athleticism to do it. We'll see. My question for Felix is going to be the same thing it was for Karlaftis last year, is that is he going to be able to have that second half of the season where he's really starting to play fast and has got some freedom and really starting to understand the playbook and can start to put up some production. But right now, I think you got to be pretty pleased with his progress. And, I think he's succeeding in what the Chiefs are asking him to do. And so I'm going to take one more here, unless anything else pops up, because I think this is a good question from Gary, about why the players going elsewhere after the Chiefs trained them all up. That's one thing that has fascinated me about the Brett Veach era, is keeping their own rookies, after their rookie deals are done, their own players that they have grown up with. And, and some of it I think is just bad circumstances and bad luck. And we probably gloss over the ones that they've kept. Now, Chris Jones, they kept beyond his rookie deal. And now technically he wasn't a Brett Veach draft pick, but Brett Veach is the one that got that deal done. So, I get that. I mean, but so you have to give him credit for that one. Mahomes, I get it. Not technically his draft pick, but I'm going to put him under Brett Veach's column because he was Brett Veach's guy. They got that one, and that was the one extension that they got done before his rookie deal was up. But, you look at the 2019 draft and McCole Hardman, Juan Thornhill, Colin Saunders, those three guys in particular all signed for more money than the Chiefs were willing to offer or could offer. So, I mean, that case, all three of them bet on themselves. Had the Chiefs Chiefs, as far as trying to sign them after year three, I can say from, having covered those players, I'm pretty comfortable that none of the three would have signed for what the Chiefs would have probably been willing to offer after year three, because I think all three of those guys would have been much more willing to say, bet on themselves, see what they're going to do in year four, and take their chances. And, and certainly I think for Thornhill and Saunders, it worked out. I mean, they got deals that the Chiefs couldn't match. And Hardman may be a little bit different, but, and clearly the Chiefs ended up going a different direction, but I'm not even sure that, with his deal with the Jets, I'm not even sure that once again, that's something that the Chiefs could have matched. And then they get fortunate when they get a guy like a Nick Allegretti, who I was really surprised didn't get signed to a starting job somewhere around the league. But, having him back on a 1-year deal, that's incredible. I mean, and they were able to do that with DeMarcus Robinson. I mean, they've had some guys that have stuck around. But, in the 2019 draft, it's, that's the Breeland Speaks, Derek Nottie, Dorian O'Daniel, Armani Watts, Tremont Smith, I guess I should say, and Khalil McKenzie. Doesn't necessarily a hit class, but you've had Derek Nottie now on a couple of 1-year deals. So it hasn't been, feast or famine. And really the other big one too, that wasn't a draft pick, but Travaris Ward, a player that they they developed, they traded for, they developed, but weren't able to keep him beyond his rookie contract. And, that's the risk you take, is that, if your players get good enough after year three that they're too expensive to keep, or they're just on the cusp and they believe that they can bet on themselves and get a better deal elsewhere, that makes it difficult. But that's why I'm fairly reasonable to believe that the Chiefs could actually get something done with Bolton and Humphrey and Smith, because those guys, I think there's going to be agreement on their value. I mean, the Chiefs aren't going to be, they can't lowball those three guys. I mean, those are three all, Pro Bowl caliber players. Creed Humphrey obviously is an all-pro caliber player. I think Nick Bolton's close to getting to that level. I think Trey Smith can get to that level. So, if they can, you go get those deals done. I mean, I think that they will. And so there's going to be more of an emphasis on getting that 21 class and getting some of those guys signed than you've ever seen before with a Chiefs rookie class. So let's see what happens, because I know that is definitely the plan. I'm very grateful for everybody who came in to join the conversation. If you listen to this later, thank you for sticking around. And everybody who is not a subscriber or hasn't liked the YouTube page yet, the channel, please give it a go. I certainly appreciate your help and support. I'm going to be trying to do more of these, so we'll see if we can't get into a routine. Maybe we do a live at least once a week. You can also catch me in a couple of other places. If you haven't heard it yet, Nick Jacobs from KSHB 41 and I have a brand new podcast that we do post game each week. 41 is the mic. Nick came up with the name because we are both, big guys at heart. We're both, the Mike linebacker types at heart. So when you hear, quarterback out there, hey, 41's the mic, 41 is the mic. We need a good 41 is the mic, linebacker out there that we can get like some audio of Mahomes saying. But that's an inside joke for really the hardcore. So I hope everybody likes the name as much as I do. But Nick and I have a fantastic time doing that. We've got the first 2 episodes out from the first 2 shows, but you'll always be able to catch that a couple hours after the game and the next morning after the game for those late night games. And we're going to try and get some other things going too. So you might hear a few other things from me on the future of a Chiefs Digest podcast line. We're going to see what's going to happen here in the next couple of weeks, but I definitely want to try and do more of these on YouTube and some more videos for everybody. We'll see. Like I said, we'll see if we can't get into a once a week routine, but appreciate everybody. Appreciate the support, and leave your comments and I'll try and get back to you anytime. Other than that, have a great week and we'll see you next time.